Hello, everybody. Welcome to Manifestation Theory, our podcast show where we create a space for you to hear from successful people, beautiful stories, thought leaders to share their experience and their journey so that you can apply in your manifestation journey. And today, we're going to have a dive deep topic, a very intense one about separation in relationship manifestation. And let me introduce to you our guest today. We have Miss Piya, a family and divorce lawyer. She is the founder of Piya Law Chambers. In her practice, she blends legal strategy with a deeply human, trauma informed approach. For her, family law is not just about winning cases, it's about helping clients to find freedom, healing, and a new beginning. Pia's mission is to change the way people experience divorce with the goal of shifting the narrative from conflict to closure. Beyond the courtroom, Pia is a passionate advocate for mental health, emotional wellness, and breaking stigmas around divorce and relationship. We are so honored and blessed to invite Pia to our podcast show today. Thank you very much for coming in, Pia.
Thank you so much, Mangla. Thank you, Dilip. I think it's a pleasure to be a part of the podcast, and I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Beautiful. So let me dive in by asking one important question. This could be a taboo topic to be talking about divorce and separation because on a general basis we are all programmed to have a successful marriage life. People measure success by how many years you're being together.
Correct.
No matter what happened, you are sticking together. That's what always been there, right? But you have witnessed countless of separations as well. In your understanding, share about the emotional and energetics behind these separations that you're seeing in marriages.
Okay, so that's true actually. So oftentimes when we talk about divorce, how I view it is that it's more than just the legal papers. So yes, of course, on the surface, you have the court orders, you have the judgments, you have the divorce petition and all of that, the affidavits and all these countless court papers we file. But the truth of it is beneath all of that, I think it's important to see that there's actually a person who's going through heartbreak. What they're going through at the moment is basically confronting so much of their inner world. And sometimes it could be negative things as well. So, how I see it is that when somebody's going through a divorce, they're not just ending their marriage, but at the same time, they're also confronting or needing to go face to face and heads on with their childhood traumas, their baggage, their past relationship traumas, and sometimes even going through like a sense of failure. I think a lot of people carry that. So, in my practice, we do trauma informed lawyering. So, what this means is that we see a person more than just a case file. So, we look at them beyond that and we assist them to move forward, giving them the right support legally and also emotionally. So, I feel like it's important to recognize that when somebody's going through a divorce, that you're not just looking at the surface of things, to really dig deep and ask them, are you really okay from like an emotional and mental space? And oftentimes people are really struggling.
That's a very beautiful way of seeing it. That's indeed because you don't see it as another case file, but you're incorporating one's emotions in that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Via.
So you once said that legal system only giving you a black and white, right? And there is a beneath that, like we said just now, we have beneath that there is another levels are there. So usually when people are going through divorce process, so there is a black and white outcome is going to come in. But what about that? There is this gray zone of emotions will be there, right? So basically, it may not be expressed or it may be even changed. Like some people will feel the heartbreak, but then they will repress their emotion and then tell outside world that it happened for the good reason.
Yes.
And also there is another part of it they will suppress. There is another part of it they don't know what to do. They are confused, right? So what are the kind of like emotions do you see in this kind of separation actually?
Okay, so you're absolutely right about the black and white and the gray zone of things. So oftentimes when somebody gets a divorce order, the courts will always address, so like maintenance will be awarded, custody is given, the divorce is granted, for example. But that's the black and white, like as you mentioned. But emotionally, these people are still processing. They're still asking themselves the questions like, oh, why did my husband cheat on me? Or why did my wife leave me? Or am I not good enough? Like, what's wrong with me? Or will I be able to live again? So that's the gray zone, if you ask me. So the emotional wounds that result in people asking those questions would usually be fear of abandonment, a lot of fear of rejection, a lot of resentment, unprocessed anger and hate towards the other party. And sometimes these emotional wounds are the things that are not often addressed in the legal system because we are sometimes very focused on the outcome, what's on paper. But the truth of it is that the healing, like to me personally, healing happens in those gray zones. Is when a client, in my practice, like how I've observed is that once a client has, gone through the whole divorce process, at the end of it, I always ask them, like, how do you feel? And usually they still tell me the truth of it is that they don't feel great. Like nobody's going to walk out of the courtroom after a divorce and feel amazing. Because the truth of it is that I think the healing starts, or the bulk of the healing is after the divorce decree is granted. So I think it's important for people to understand that there's two sides of a divorce. You get the black and white, the court order, but there's also those gray zones that we spoke about, which I think is where the actual healing takes place.
That's very beautifully said because we have that done on the paper. Okay, everything is done, but still they will go back with, okay, I'm not being chosen. Why did they cheated? I'm having all those insecurity. I mean, like I have faced this with those clients who gone through divorce and they wanted to have their life after that, to focus on the life after that. It will be very much difficult for them because of the mindset that once I've got cheated, what if I get cheated another time?
Correct. Yeah.
I wasn't a good wife. How am I going to go into another relationship? I became that is from a man perspective. Okay, there is women. She didn't trust me. She betrayed me. How can I trust another woman? Right. So how do you see this whole transition after this separation? How do you think it is impacting their life in manifesting next level, which is like it can be peace, it can be another life. If you have witnessed your clients, how is that happening? Do you think?
So I think if you look at it, I believe it's twofolds, right? So I believe in this, like how you exit a marriage sets the tone of how you're going to enter your next relationship.
Okay.
Yeah, I always tell my clients that if you are going to end your marriage very unconsciously, meaning that you carry so much of like victim mindset, bitterness, all this resentment and anger, you are going to repeat the same cycle in your next relationship. It's inevitable. But at the same time, if somebody is exiting that relationship, they're ending their marriage in a very conscious level, that means they take accountability. They are able to sit down with those negative and hard emotions and ask themselves, like, how did I contribute to this? What did I do? Is there anything that I may have played into this dynamic? When they take accountability, I notice that they are able to break free and they are able to then, in other words, manifest or attract a partner who is much healthier than the one in their past. So that is the big difference. I would always remind my clients, do you want to exit this marriage consciously or unconsciously? So there's a term that we always use in the divorce world. It's called conscious uncoupling. So that's a terminology that I like to explain to my clients. Like you have to remember that you want to consciously uncouple, because if you do it unconsciously, you are going to repeat the same cycle again and again. So I've had clients that when we talk about like divorce, when I first see them, they always tell me like, what is the point, Piya, of going to therapy? Why am I sitting and asking these hard questions? I don't think I will ever trust someone again. Oftentimes in like trust issue cases, right, where there's betrayal and things like that. But then when they actually start doing the work, and I'm sure you guys are, I mean, I view your content and stuff, you guys are really show people the path on how do you actually do the work, because it's very easy to say do the work, go to therapy, but what does that actually mean, right? So once the clients actually do the work, I notice that they come back and tell me like, oh my God, I'm getting married again, but this time this person is different. I've learned so much from my past and everything. So yeah, to answer your question, I think you have to figure out what are parts of you that need healing, work on that before you get into the next relationship.
Very, very beautifully said.
Very beautifully shared, actually.
you.
And especially about trust issues, right? Where people tend to think that they can't trust after this. And those are the people we see them having more trust, actually, because they are fearful that they will trust easily. Actually, it's not those people who have trust issues. They won't have this fear of I will trust someone because they don't have a trust. But those people who really have a trust issues are the people can trust easily. So that's what I see. And
Correct.
because of this, these days, recently, there's a lot of social media contents talks about narcissistic partner and toxic partner. We also in our page talk about karmic partner, right? So, and why we label it as karmic partner, because when we label someone as a narcissist, like you said, we don't take accountability. We become the victim of narcissistic, and then that cycle never ends. It's going to be like you're always going to find a narcissistic parent, narcissistic friend, narcissistic partner, and what we don't realize is that we are the victim consciousness who's bringing it, right? So that's the reason we made it to be a karmic, because it's like you said, it's accountability of my contribution to the relationship and the other person's contribution to the relationship, right? So when it comes to this victim people, right, and you have spoken about accountability very well, right? So how do they able to balance the pain without blaming that other person? Because you talk about accountability, which you already said, but there are some parts of it still, even though they take accountability, they will still try to blame it, right? So how do you see this blame culture come into this divorce?
Especially as you mentioned, I think in the aspect of dealing with somebody who's narcissistic or a toxic partner, I think the first thing is to accept that you are going to blame yourself or you're going to blame the other person. Sometimes you can even start blaming your parents, you'll blame your friends, like, oh, I wish I had better parents, wish I had better friends. So I think it's important to recognize that it's normal to have that blame game in the beginning. But I think that is where I would differentiate between a person who wants to move forward consciously and unconsciously, because the blame game has to stop at some point. Because at the end of the day, so this is one of my favorite quotes that I always remember, and I always share it as well, like with my friends or my clients, whoever I feel would benefit from it, which is that what happened to you is not your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. So I always let them know that what happened to us, like for example, the fact that somebody treated us badly, or if we attracted a narcissistic partner. Yes, well, if you do a lot of reading, I'm sure you guys do a lot of content on narcissistic partners. End of the day, it comes back down to that we contributed to the dynamic, like because we had very low self-esteem. The narcissist probably feels that, okay, this is an excellent victim. Or at times, sometimes when we cannot set boundaries, they realize that, okay, this is a perfect person to just, walk all over them and all of that. But rather than speaking negatively to ourselves, is the self-talk, right? If we change it in a way to ask ourselves, instead of asking like, oh, why is my self-esteem so low? Or why didn't I have good friends growing up? Or why can't I assert a boundary? Change it around and ask yourself, like, what part of me needs healing so that I can attract a better partner? So the way that we speak to ourselves is what shifts between the part of blaming and accountability. So I think blaming is obviously a negative emotion, but it's something that we cannot avoid. We're all humans at the end of the day. But I think accountability is where you reclaim your power again. So, yeah, I think first acknowledge how we feel, but then tell ourselves that, okay, I want to reframe this whole thing. Like, I want to change the way I speak to myself. And I think that would help you see things in a more positive light.
I'm pretty sure your clients are very, very blessed to have a lawyer who is empathizing very much to understand
Oh,
about
thank
them so much. Like literally to, having someone who is not only getting things done on a legal level, but having someone who is understanding the dynamic behind it. What is it actually you are feeling, empathizing, and also making them to question the important question: which part of me needed healing? How can I take accountability? I think
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Like probably everyone need to have a friend like that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like, because I had been through my divorce process, and the empathizing part is what really matters. But then, of course, I'm a kind of like a customer who value the service they are providing and also value the long term connection with the legal stuffs, right? But it's also a part of me faced a lot of challenge within myself when I face these legal issues, which will make me go fearful because of my experience in my past, I tend to feel anything legal, I will try to procrastinate.
Oh wow! So in a way, it has traumatized you to a certain level, like in a Oh wow!
So yeah, I think it's also comes from a place of like even in it stems from the deep self of like from exams, right? So even though I know good about the subject, but I don't want to participate because I have this fear, like fear of judgment,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So and that fear of judgment will make us to procrastinate to go uh, to make a next step in legal, because emotionally we might have, like we spoke about earlier, like after divorce your healing starts, but this other way around also could be existing where you already emotionally disconnected, but for this legal you are procrastinating. So what kind of advice would you give those kind of people who's very fearful of procrastinating the legal
To take action on legal
legal stuff?
I think like you actually mentioned a statement there, which I think understanding why we feel that way, right? And if I hear you correctly, I think it's basically the fear of judgment. So I think society has basically just divorce is just heavily it's such a heavy taboo topic lah. I think automatically when somebody says that I am thinking of divorce or I'm going through a divorce, automatically okay, you're a failure. That's what people feel. But I think you need the advice I would give, I would say, is to get support with someone or get someone to help you. It can be legal or it can be in the form of therapy or anything. Someone who really gets you. I think it's really important. So I think in any service that we go to, for example, even if you're going to a doctor, if you're going to a lawyer, if you're going to like a therapist, I think it's very deeply humane interactions. It's dealing with people. I think you need to find the right fit, probably someone who understands, doesn't rush the process for you, and questions and even asks you like, okay, wait a minute, you seem to be a bit fearful to take that step, but let's explore, let's understand a little bit why, and reassure you that your fears are just fears, that it's not going to manifest in the reality, and that we have plan A, plan B, because usually the antidote to anxiety is action. So whenever we start feeling anxious about anything, we just want to know the answer. Okay, this is the plan, this is what's going to happen. So I think to answer your question, I hope I'm answering it right, is basically for those who are contemplating divorce, but they have so much of fear of what's going to happen if they take the step, I think is to basically speak to someone who can explain to you from point A to point Z what's going to happen, ask all the questions, and you have to feel comfortable with the person who's assisting you through this process. Hence, for me, like when I get my clients on board, whenever I work with them, I don't see it as, okay, the moment the case has ended, then, okay, goodbye, you're out of the door. The truth of it is a lot of people actually need healing and need support after the divorce. So I think that's where our role as a divorce, for me personally, is very, very important. Because if you just tell your client, okay, the case has ended, now you're out the door, deal with your problems yourself, I think like they feel abandoned and very, left alone to deal with their trauma and everything. So I think it's important for someone to really understand what you're going through. Yeah, and somewhere that you can also be vulnerable. The problem is sometimes when everybody puts like a front, we are so scared to even share things. How do we go and tell a lawyer that actually I'm actually very afraid that my parents will disown me or my parents will criticize me for getting a divorce? But you need to have the outlet. I think it's important to find the right fit in anything.
beautifully. I started to adore you so much. What a human. Really, really. That's very beautifully said. Like, step one is to tell them, okay, this is how the process is going to be. Make it very clear for them to see it as well. Because we get anxious when we don't know, when we don't have certainty, right? You're giving the certainty, and that gives the assurance first, right? Second thing is like, this is a long term journey. Let's do it together. You're not going to be abandoned right after this step. So
Correct.
that gives a lot of sense of secure feeling supported and secure. And
Correct.
that's very personal, that feeling. Thank you so much for doing that and being that person.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for that.
So that leads to our next question. How, I mean, like abandonment, right? So when it comes to the child, because we talk about like how the emotions of the couple going to be, but when it comes to child, when it comes to co-parenting, um, and also most of the time, like the healing, they don't go through the healing process, so they become very dependent on the kids they project their emotions to the kids, and then they don't address their abandonment, fear of abandonment, and they tend to overly rely on kids' energy, and then that becomes like a karmic loop. Kids also get to into that, and then how do you see this co-parenting and also this projection of energy which is going to go to the kid?
Okay. So, how I view co parenting is basically it's not about whether you like your ex. It's got nothing to do with whether you like your ex, actually. It's got to do with whether your kids feel safe and happy in this new dynamic that they will be in after divorce. So I think it's important for people to understand that when you're co-parenting, it's got nothing to do with you whether you agree with their ways and all of that. Because the goal here, when you've gone through separation, when it involves kids, the goal is to ensure that the child feels stable and loved in the home. And I always remind my clients, parenting and partnership are two separate things. Meaning, somebody can fail completely as a wife or a husband, but they can thrive. They're an excellent mother or father. And I think it's important for people to know that, because what happens is sometimes when we feel like, okay, you know what, you're a horrible mother, or you're a horrible wife, for example, we project that relationship that we have with our wife or husband, alternatively, onto the relationship. We tend to expect the children to also hate the other parent. And children, at the end of the day, they want both mother and father. So putting them in a situation where they have to pick sides, I think is the most unkind thing that we can do to a child. But at the same time, like, where do these emotions stem from? It's coming back to, like, as we mentioned earlier, right? It's because we have so much of unprocessed trauma, probably from our past. Maybe we grew up not knowing what a secure relationship is like. Because maybe, for example, if somebody grew up in a home where their parents were constantly fighting, so they never really had a good model of what a healthy relationship is. So then they would bring that into this relationship. And what happens, as you mentioned, it goes on and on and on because the child is now observing it. So how to stop this cycle, I feel, when it comes to individuals co-parenting, number one is, I always remind my clients, respond, don't react. And always pause before you send any message. You are so irritated at your partner, they told you they'll come and pick up the child at 4 o'clock. They come at 4:20 and they've messed up all your plans. But just don't react to anything. Just realize that there's a little kid that's watching you, that's seeing how you speak about their parent, your body language around it. So I think that's important. But I think the most important thing is like an affirmation that people need to tell themselves when they have kids and they're co-parenting is that my child didn't ask for this. And my child deserves to feel loved and safe by both mother and father without having to carry my pain. So I always remind my clients that, like, your child did not ask for this. You know, a child wants both mom and dad, didn't ask for this. The least that we can do is to not project that onto the It's easier said than done. I'm pretty sure you guys deal with a lot of clients who really struggle with that. But I feel like the more you dive deeper into your, your inner world, you will realize that, wait a minute, I'm actually not reacting to my spouse. I'm reacting to maybe something that happened to me 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Then you realize you start to let go. But when you don't do any work, you don't take accountability, you basically think that whatever your spouse is doing is so personal, and that's where you start, we start throwing the kid in the middle of the whole thing, and that's where it actually goes down south. So personally, if you ask me, I think that's why I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer of going to therapy. I always advocate for that because I feel like you need to start somewhere. Therapy alone won't be able to fix your problems, but you need to start somewhere. You need someone to ask you like hard-hitting questions. Then you will start, on your drive home back from therapy, you'll start wondering, oh my God, why did my therapist ask me what was my relationship with my mother? And then you'll wonder like, oh my God, that is what my wife is doing to our child. And I see some resemblance. Why am I attracted to that? Maybe because I'm familiar. So those sort of things are where I feel like parents need to take accountability so that they can foster a good co-parenting relationship.
I think in this moment, I wanted to take a pause and being grateful for my ex-wife because she is really a very beautiful mother. She does her best. And I just wanted to give her my gratitude to her because, as you said, we may not be a right fit partners, but we are very good co-parenting, right? So I'm really grateful for that. I usually share this with Mangala also, like, you know what, our relationship didn't work, but then she never project anything to my son, and she always take accountability on herself, and also I take my accountability. But I got confused and I need to heal. So one important thing I would say is that in order for this loop to stop at one person, start the healing journey, or even to find a conscious person in your circle to give you that kind of conscious answer you needed. One of my friend asked me, Dilip, you're going all the way, always going for healing, healing, healing. So after that, who will you become, Dilip?
Wow.
Because I was going through pranic healing, energy healing, NLP practices, and also my coaching practices, and also my business practices. All these places I learn about coaching, facilitating, everything, right? So I'm keep on learning. I'm uh, keep on learning and learning, but where I'm not pausing myself and internalizing the learning.
Oh, that's actually a very powerful thing that you've mentioned. You're right, because we can read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, and feel like we are progressing, but you're absolutely right. Like, what are we actually doing, right?
Do we apply
Do we
those
apply those
knowledge?
things? Yeah. Oh, that's actually very, very, very powerful realization. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm blessed to have that kind of people I met in the. That's when you needed not only your inner circle. Sometimes you're going through your divorce because of your inner circle,
Wow, very true.
because
Yeah.
your inner reality, there is no space for you to recognize your inner reality as a chaos, because you already go through the karmic loop within yourself, and then that inner reality is chaos. So when you need a conscious outside reality where a person can literally ask you a right question to make you recognize who you are, you're, I mean, like, I'm always being a love. I'm always trying to become the best father for my son. But then I don't really internalize the intention, rather than I'm bringing my tension into my relationship.
Beautifully said.
Wow, that's actually a very powerful realization, actually. Yeah, and but I must say something, like earlier when you were sharing about your ex-wife, I mean, like, because I deal with so much of conflict and individuals who just can't stand their partners. Honestly, it's so heartwarming to hear you speak that way, and also speak that way in front of your partner at this moment, and you having a positive reaction to it. So I must say that was incredibly heartwarming to watch. Yeah, and I hope that a lot of people who are listening to this podcast can gain something from just this little moment that I have witnessed. Yeah, so I think that's beautiful. And I think it really goes to what I mentioned earlier about co-parenting. When you also have the support of, like, everybody moves on. When you have a new partner in your life, it's also important that that person is also on the same energy field as you are, because they will be able to understand and support. And at the day, the child benefits because they have, mom, dad, and also they have another person in their life who cares for the child. So that's incredibly beautiful.
Thank you so much, Pia. And that's the beauty about yourself. And also, I mean, like, this is where what I was talking about, the learning the healing versus being the healing is two different things. So when you are being the healing, you will adore the version of people who's already manifested it. So that's where the gratitude comes into play, where you can be grateful about to seeing this, witnessing it. So that creates the energy field around us to attract those people who value you, who respect you, who appreciate you, and maybe even your past people during that period of divorce, they won't be acknowledging you, but after you grow up to become the adult, they can never witness. They will appreciate you that you are not projecting anything, or you're not, because I think that's one of the quality Mangla loves about me. Like, I don't usually talk bad about women.
I think that's one important part,
Yeah.
because I have been in a relationship who talk bad about his exes, and it always feels like taking one stand. This is better, but they did this to me. So I think when we enter into a relationship, initially it was a friendship. So one thing I realized that although he was going through separation, I've never heard any word uttering anything bad about the exes in the life, any women in the life. That was a new thing for me because I have heard different stories. And then once he became my ex, talking bad about me was also there. So I had this trust issues with men, like, oh, end of the day, they're gonna, back talk. But one respectful thing probably that I saw is like when a man who is healed, taking accountability, he's not gonna actually bad mouth a woman in his life. Probably he will see himself through those experiences. This is what
spot on.
I've got. Yeah, this is what I've got. This is what I learned through this experience. He came into my life to give me these lessons. Seeing that perspective. I think that's everybody needed that.
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
just because you've gone through a divorce doesn't mean that you gotta hurt them or curse them or throwing anger and tantrum. That means there is something in you that you have to address, living with that hate energy within.
100%. And I think just to add on to that is like, I mean, it's harder, it's easier said than done. Like, I'm very careful when I tell my clients that, okay, you will be, in a couple of months, you will realize why this had to happen. Like, usually when people are in the thick of the divorce proceeding, that is the last thing they want to hear. Like, seriously, are you telling me this at this moment? I'm hurting, right? But to be very honest, the truth of it is that I'm pretty sure if I were to ask you right now, like, do you understand now why that had to happen? I'm pretty sure you've made peace with it. Like, you understand that there were parts of yourself that needed healing in order to attract another relationship, for you to do what you're doing now in your life. So it's hard to see when we're in the thick of it. So that's what I always remind my clients, that it's very confusing. We don't know why is this happening. Why does it feel like my family is breaking apart and everything? But if you actually give it time, I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. Yeah. Sometimes you don't know the reason at that time. Sometimes it can take 5 years, 10 years. But I feel like if you really take accountability and you really work on yourself and you are chasing growth, I feel like you will be able to, you will turn around and tell yourself again, like, okay, I know exactly why that had to happen. And I went through it myself. So I had not so nice relationships in the past. And at that point of time, it kind of felt like, oh, but why? Like, I feel like I'm the kind of person that I'm very loyal. Like, I would give everything to my partner. But why does this have to happen to me? And all of that. But now I ask myself, like, I am grateful for whatever that had happened, because he has made me the person I am today. So I think it's looking back with gratitude. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Beautifully shared.
So talking about the why, uh, actually, I would say instead of looking for the why about the separation, we should start looking about the why am I so being a lover, instead of questioning ourselves about why the separation has to happen, because that's what made me to start understanding my parents, because then that was a challenging moment for me too. After 40 years, I'm really grateful for Mangla to come into my life to be a coach as well, right? So she was the facilitator for me and my dad to have that kind of conversations. And then I came to realize, when I was 4 years old, my dad wanted to have a divorce, and it is 1988, and people convinced him that his sisters convinced him, no, you shouldn't get divorced. And then that stopped there. And then now also he made a peace with himself. Okay, you know what, if I leave your mom now, I don't know where she will go, what she will do. So this is one of the maturity will come after some time, right? So sometimes some relationship doesn't need to break. So and we don't need to, as a kid, we don't need to have the desire that why my parents didn't do the divorce. You need to ask yourself, do I want divorce or I don't want to have a divorce? So the important lesson I learned in my journey is that a man who's having a nurturer energy is being seen as a weak person, and is being seen as a, if you don't talk in the tone of like anger, if you don't talk in the tone of controlling,
Yeah.
that reality is not being accepted. So that is my lesson. But what I realized in that, those are the men who are leaders. In my energetical field, in my reality, I saw those are the men or leaders actually. because those are the men who don't control their organization, rather they create the organization. So
Wow.
so that is the realization I had to go through in order for me to see that reality. And then it made me to recognize that, okay, it's okay to be a nurturer, but that is balanced actually. It's not like you're going to this extreme to control, or it's not this extreme to be surrendering, but it is in between. That is where your real knowing and surrendering frequency is there. So that's what I learned in my lesson.
Oh, that's so true that you shared, because I remember watching this video on Instagram of The Rock, doing The Rock Johnson, and I think he was playing like makeup, or he's
For his
dressing
kids.
up his kids, and a lot of people, I viewed the comments, and people were like, oh, not really the nicest comments, but at the same time also that video sparked a lot, because it actually demonstrated what a healthy masculine looks like. That you are so secure in your masculinity that you can put on makeup, tie your hair, put on lipstick, eyeshadow, and you can play with your daughters, go down to that level of being with them. I personally think that that is a healthy masculine. That a man is so secure in himself that he can do that. So I completely understand where you're coming from. With people think like, I mean, from like a man perspective, like needing to raise your voice or assert control over your partner is a definition of being like the leader in the house and all of that. But you're right, like sometimes leading is more by your actions, and I think it's the little things like this. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. Yeah.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Well, after 40 years, I witnessed him calling his father Appa with that word.
Wow.
Seems like it wasn't there for 40 years, actually.
Oh.
Then when we have the conversation, we recognize how a man could have felt in his life, and he's very similar person, very similar energy. He's very easygoing person, and but when he said that it's not working, it wasn't actually respected. So he has to go through life with that. And then he saw the same synchronicity when his kid was 4 years old. The same thing repeated in his life, that he has to ask for a divorce. Now, going back to that root of why they didn't respect that, why they didn't allow that to happen, is actually kind of shaming around it. You know what? Still, I would say, when we talk about a man who is divorced, a woman who is divorced, it always comes around with shame. Like when I expressed to my inner circle that I'm going to be with him, it was always like, why do you have to go as a second one? Why you want to be the second one? Even up to our marriage period, there was still, oh, this is a second marriage for him, or she's becoming the second person. And the shaming around a man who has divorced. And I've seen that in my client, a woman who has been divorced, for her to go for a relationship, she always belittle herself as if some status is being lowered, to think about, I'm not going to choose the best, but for me, probably this is good enough because I've gone through divorce. Like, you don't have to do that, but it's because the shame that we are carrying around it, right? So how do you see that, Pia? How are you helping the clients to navigate through this shame? How much you see this actually in reality when after the cases?
It is so rampant, to be very honest. So I have had clients who come in and they get the consultation, they plan their exit, they have everything on paper. We've mapped out, okay, what are we going to do about the kids? What are we going to do about where she's going to stay and all of those things. And when it actually comes to the point of pulling the trigger, they always tell me, yeah, I can't do it. And then I always go beyond and ask them, right? Because you also want to understand, coming back to the point that a lot of people have so much of fear. But what is the fear? Is it fear of being alone? Is it fear of being rejected? And oftentimes, as you mentioned, it's always about, oh, what will my family think of me? Like, will somebody marry me again? Like, I really want kids, like especially in couples who have no children yet. But I want kids. Like, do you think a man will accept me? So these are questions that I hear my clients ask me. And they often feel like what you mentioned, that, okay, just if I go through a divorce, automatically I'm one step down. That sort of, they feel like they've gotten that reputation. And I think it's also quite prevalent amongst women that the moment somebody says that I'm thinking of divorce, the first question people will say is like, oh, you know what, you never fought enough. And no, girls these days, so easily all just throw in the towel without actually even asking like what happened. For all I know, she could be going through domestic violence at home and all of that. So I think like the taboo around it has resulted in so many people having so much of these fears, and it is happening till today, to be very honest with you. But I always, when they tell me that, what I tell them, the next thing that I explain to them is that you need to remember that when you choose to end your marriage, it's not about giving up or that you're a failure or that you're not trying hard enough. Is you're deciding to choose truth over pretense. So you're choosing to finally acknowledge that you're not happy. Because sometimes we keep the peace, we put on a mask. We're not happy in the marriage, but we put on a mask and we try to think like, okay, I won't show my parents, or the kids won't know, like, we'll just have dinner together on the table. But children observe, they can see your body language. Like if the mother and father are not communicating, they are not affectionate to one another. So I always ask them, it's not about choosing that, telling yourself that you're a failure. It's choosing the truth finally. And sometimes the truth can also be that, wait a minute, looks like I feel like I want out of the marriage, but let me see if my spouse wants to work it out. The truth can also be recognizing that we have a problem. Because sometimes I'm not a believer that the moment you come and see me, the first thing we do is get a divorce. I always ask my clients, like, where are you at? Because there's a whole a timeline of things. Sometimes it's just a matter of like, I really love that person, but we are just not seeing things the same way. It could be a miscommunication issue. It could be an issue which can be rectified if both of them work together. So in my perspective, how I look at it is that taking that accountability or taking the first step, acknowledging the truth, it can be maybe we can't be happy together. Let's go towards a divorce. We need to end the marriage, or let's acknowledge that our relationship is going through issues right now and we need help and seek the right help. It can be in the form of therapy. It can be in the form of having a person that you can confide in. It can be in terms of speaking to someone who can help us. So I think that's how I do it in my practice. I don't minimize the feeling. I think it's a very real feeling. A lot of people face, especially those in our culture, in the Indian community. I think it's automatically, when you even utter the word divorce or even separation, automatically it's like, oh my God, like, you girls these days, or your youngsters these days, you all don't want to fight for your marriage. Our time, we used to stay till 40, 50 years. Like, I understand where they're coming from, but I think the next question would be to ask them, like, what's happening? Like, do you want me to stay with someone who's like abusing me? Yeah, there's so much more to that. But sometimes it can be rectified. But I think the follow-up question should always be like, tell me more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like you said, like the fighting part of it. What we don't realize is that the fighting part, when you are fighting for your relationship, when you are becoming like a old age, and that is when you're going to slow down yourself, because 45, 50 years old, that's when you're going to slow down. All the while you'll be keeping yourself busy because you're fighting, right? So you will be distracting with work or family, or fighting with your partner. So what happens to us after 45 to 50, when you keep on fighting for your relationship? Your energy will break down, and that is when you wanted to complain about this relationship, and that is when you will start complaining about yourself, your body, your nervous system, and that creates an energy within you. That's the reason, if you see all those uh, parents who are always fighting with each other, they will go through a lot of chronic illnesses and diseases. I can explain that better than me.
Like, I have been doing this research with diabetes mellitus, like, because it was there from my generationally, it was there. And one thing which is very common was anger that has been suppressed in life, especially when it comes to partners. So when they have issues all the time, they are fighting for each other, fighting among each other, and there's constant anger that has been suppressed. They go through chronic diseases like hypertension, diabetes mellitus. These were there actually, right? We call it lifestyle and stuffs like that. But when we go deeper, looking into emotions, and then why are someone is going through this emotion of anger most of the time? Why is this constant shaming is happening? Then when we go deeper, most of the time it has been contributed either from their parent trying to be good enough as a son or a daughter, or in a relationship trying to be good enough as a wife or as a husband. And that makes, you see, you are creating constant inflammation in your body. Like being in stress most of the time, basically, when you break it down, whatever that we call as genetical disease, right? I say it's generational trauma as well. That has been passed down. Whatever idiopathic has now been seen as because of your stress. That's a vague word, but when we break that down, stress that comes into this, what are you going through on a daily basis? What is that you are expressing? What is that you are suppressing? What is that you are repressing within you? How does that storing on a cellular level in your body? Most of the women who has been suppressing and repressing their emotion, they have issues with their pelvic area, pelvic organs, PCOS, vaginismus, dysmenorrhea, painful menstruation, endometriosis. For a woman who never felt enough as a woman, she has always been has to be fighting with the men in their life. Either fight with the parents to say that I am a good kid, not only your son, or fighting in a relationship, feeling that I want to be seen equally, treated equally. So physiologically and energetically, your body is going through this confusion. Am I supposed to be as a woman, nurturer, or should I fight and protect and shield myself up? That has been there. And when we see the parents, they are suffering with chronic illness. They can't be at peace. They are going through the complaints, internalizing complaints most of the time. On a daily basis, if you see, the thing that they're thinking about, speaking about is actually complaints. And those energy affect so much with health.
Yeah. I actually have a personal story to share with that is that so I have SLE. SLE is lupus, basically. It's an autoimmune condition. And I was diagnosed with this when I was going through a very, very dark period in my life and pertaining to, of course, a lot of relationship issues and all of that. So at that point of time, it kind of felt like, okay, this thing came up now, maybe it's a genetic thing or whatever. But if I look back right now, it was my body screaming for help. Basically, like, okay, your entire body is working against you. And now that I am in a healthier and happier relationship, I'm married now. My husband, he's honestly a gem of a person, and he's been like my rock and supporter through everything. My disease is also in remission. I'm in a better state now. So then I realized, like, as much as, yeah, I'm doing the physical thing, like going to the gym, working on my health, eating the right thing, trying to lose weight, doing all those things. But I cannot deny that there's an element of that, like what you mentioned earlier, which is what's happening inward, right? You can't run from that. And I think the body keeps score. Like when you're not happy with something, it manifests in certain parts. So like whenever I used to go for like healing retreats and stuff, they always used to say like, okay, close your eyes, and which part of your body do you feel the anger? And I used to think, which part of my body? Like I didn't understand until you really go deep into that meditative state. And I realized like, oh my God, there's certain parts of my body just aching because the energy, I believe, is stored there, the negative emotions. And I think when it's suppressed and not having an outlet is where it manifests into an illness, as you mentioned.
Yep.
Some parts of autoimmune disease comes from repressing more than suppressing.
Yeah.
Because suppressing also, it's okay to have a depression and it's okay to have anxiety, it's okay. But repression is what causes most of the autoimmune disease because your cells are confused. Which one is my inner cells? Which one is outer cell? So your cells are confused because we are confused because in your heart you might be feeling that a lot of anger, but when it comes to your throat, you are speaking differently or positively, right? So that positivity sometimes that's what we realized recently these days. Your positivity is stored in your sacral area, and your heart is feeling no love, and your truth is not coming out from yourself. So imagine all these chakras are different feelings are there, right? So and that creates a confusion within in a cellular level manifestation. So your cellular level, your body is fighting within inner chaos. Is like it is asking for a divorce.
Yeah. Nice way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm going to go in read up more about that just to understand a bit more, as you mentioned earlier, about having certain illnesses and what is it actually trying to tell us, right? From like a deeper level. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, because I think even in our sessions, like you said, like later after the almost in a divorce process, that's the time they will express that, oh, this is what I'm feeling, right? You would have felt it like every time they won't. The last moment they'll say, no, I don't want to have a divorce,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the same way, uh, for us, we will be almost like finishing our session. That's when they will say, you know what, I have this health condition.
Really? Okay.
We'll be like, oh, really? That is because we never allowed to express our intimacy related health conditions plus this kind of cellular level health conditions. We never allowed to express it because that also creates a familial
Yeah.
thing, right? How come your kid I mean,
Yeah,
that judgment,
exactly. So
right?
much of shame around those things. Yeah. So what do you guys, so if somebody at the end of the session, then you guys realize that, for example, they have an autoimmune condition, right? How do you take it from there? So it means addressing the root of the issue, is it?
It opens up a lot of door for us to see things very, very clearly. It's like we have got an important information. Like for me, I see that as a that is why this has happened, and this is how you're gonna probably take action on the next moving
Okay,
forward.
okay.
You gotta probably break the pattern of being yourself. Break the pattern of however that you have been all this while. Probably it's time for you to shift, think differently because your body is already telling you a sign that don't do this to me again anymore. So you're going to do things differently. So we will have deeper sessions to understand, to connect with the body more. And I used to have this emotional release session, which is quite deeper, where we allow them to go deeper into the body and do the deep listening from the body. Sometimes things come up, the things that they don't even remember, some emotions, some incidents that they don't even remember consciously, it will come up from the bodily when we go into the deep sessions. So we used to speak it out, release it, and then try to shift internally, and then we go about it. That's deep, because
Yeah.
me when I came to know that I had this condition called vaginismus, I felt so ashamed around it to be even, I can't even talk about it to my parents because I explored when I was with him. So there is so much of taboo, shame. And then for me to recognize why it has been there, it's again, it is about the abuses that I've gone through and stuff like that. So it's completely something I gotta be silenced about. How do I seek for help? Right? So imagine a woman, this is very hard because she can't talk about it.
Yeah.
It even when she tried to express after marriage to a mother or a grandmother, that's how it will be painful. You have to adjust
Yeah.
with that. It's
Oh
you
my
have to
God.
adjust with that.
Yeah.
But not
It's not
really.
supposed to be that way. Yeah.
You got to create an emotional connection, emotional safety. That's when your body will be able to open up.
Yeah, so true. I wish, yeah, a lot of people, I've spoken to a lot of people as well, and they do share that with me that I think it's just supposed to be this way. It's supposed to be painful and all of that. But I always knew that, like, as you mentioned, I always have read before as well, like, there's a lot more than just that, right? It's like basically the body is basically saying that don't feel safe. This is not supposed to happen, like.
Isn't that anger creates more divorce rates? That because a woman is rejecting a man and a man go and seek a outlet in cheating and other ways, and that is creating more. Isn't that creating more divorce rates?
I think it depends on who you're married to, right? I think at the end of the day, if you are with someone who you can share about your past, like for example, like the reason you have, for example, this particular condition is because, going through certain types of abuses in the past has resulted in your body just not wanting to, doesn't feel safe. But if you have a partner that you can actually sit down and talk it out and see, okay, how do we go from this? Like I have a friend who's actually a sex coach. And so she basically assists people. So people always think like, oh, what do they do? But the truth of it is that they help people understand situations like this, that it's, what do you do in places like this? And oftentimes it's got nothing to do with anything physical. They actually go into your emotions and help you understand, like even before anything happens in the bedroom, like how do you even view sex, for example? Like are you so fearful of it? Like where did that stem from? Where did this stigma, or like why is there such a negative reaction to even talking about sex and things like that? So that's when I realized like, oh wow, like these are when like the sex coaches come into the picture. So to answer your question, I feel like if you're going, a lot of women go through this. It's a very common issue women face, and I think it's something that can be rectified. But I think you need a partner who is willing to sit with you and ask you like, tell me more. How can I help? Let's not rush this process. Let's do it together. Because the truth of it is that men may have their version of sexual issues as well. And I think similarly for the women is to also be there rather than belittling him, to actually ask like, hey, okay, look here, maybe we're having a bit of difficulties in this area at this moment. Why? Let's try and get help. Yeah, so I think it's how we choose to see it. But if somebody is going into it unconsciously, as we mentioned earlier, you're going to build up so much of bitterness and resentment. Then, of course, one person is going to have an extramarital affair, and then the marriage goes downhill, unfortunately.
It again reminds me the way you said, like, how you exit a marriage set a tone on how you're going to go into your new life. Like, if you feel like you end it with a lot of resentments without understanding why are we even ending it, probably you're going to carry that into the next relationships as well.
100%. Yeah.
Beautifully said.
So
Yeah.
I think one of the important question, because when we are talking about like your autoimmune condition, I wanted to ask you this, because I do have inflammation sometimes comes into play, even though you are in a secure relationship. At times, our old feelings will come as a fear of abandonment, right? So I mean, like for me, it's fear of I'm not sure
Yeah,
about what
mine
you
is the
say.
same, fear of
Same,
abandonment
okay.
as well.
So that actually, even though we were in a secure relationship, sometimes we tend to create a reality or manifest a reality within our own life, right? So how do you overcome that actually?
Like I'll be lying if I said that I don't have anything at this
Yeah.
moment. You know, at the end of the day, it's a condition that I have, and I do get my flare-ups here and there. And whenever I notice that it comes up in situations where sometimes it kind of feels like the body is not used to the reality, and suddenly you just get a bit of a flashback to the past. And it's so funny, but at that moment you actually feel like you are in your past. I don't know whether you can resonate with that.
Same.
Yeah, like
Exactly.
although you look around and you know that you're in a different home, everything is different, your partner is different, but I think energetically from like a deeper level, you actually feel like, oh my goodness, like what's happening? Like I know this feeling is so familiar and all of that. But I think grounding myself helps me a lot. Like for me, is I like to walk on grass. Just barefoot walking on grass helps ground me. And sometimes I feel like just letting it out. Like I'm a big believer of crying. I don't see crying as as a failure or anything negative. I feel like sometimes you have all these emotions, you need to let it out, and I feel like it is a way that I deal with my emotions. And I feel like you need to talk it out. You need to have someone in your life, and oftentimes it'll be your partner because you're in a secure relationship now, that you can openly share that, okay, hey, look here, I am not reacting to you, but I'm just suddenly feeling all of these feelings that are so familiar to what I used to feel in the past. And just knowing and hearing from them, like, hey, no worries, I got you, I understand. What do you need? Let's go and get ice cream or something. Takes your mind off it. I think that helps me. So like my partner, as I mentioned earlier, like my husband, he is very, very supportive. He knows everything. I've shared with him a lot about my relationships in the past, and a lot of the baggage that even I carried into my marriage, to be very honest, that I needed to work on. But to answer a question on how do I deal with these things, I think is basically telling myself that this is normal. I will have days where I'll start feeling again like what I used to feel before. And oftentimes, like for me, I mean, I'm not sure, maybe Mangla can relate as well. Like, you know, women, we don't have the same emotion throughout the entire month. Our cycle, like that's something I've learned very recently as well. Like, you know, I think we were not told that when we were kids, you know, we expected, we thought that we're going to be the same as men, have the same emotions. So I was talking to my husband also the other day about how, you know, if 1 week you're so excited, you're probably in your ovulation stage, and then you crash in your luteal phase. So I think also giving myself a lot of permission to know like it's okay to feel this way. And and I think having the right support, especially your partner, to understand, I think that's very, very important.
Beautiful to hear that you are feeling such way in your life right now. I'm
Thank you.
wishing you the best. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that makes sense a lot because at times our emotion, our cycle affect our partner as well.
Yeah,
With
I know.
they go through a cycle with
Oh my
us.
God, what is happening? Yeah.
Then you're like, okay, now I realize I think you're gonna get your menses. Okay,
Yeah.
these are the things I'm gonna do with you.
Yeah, yeah.
But actually, that shouldn't come from a judgmental way,
Yeah.
right? It shouldn't be a scoring. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
shouldn't be a scoring. I mean, like I need to be very aware of that because at times it could be my past lessons where I'm getting that back in myself. So I need to understand as well because sometimes like whatever that happened in your past baggage, like you said, as a man also shouldn't carry to a relationship to judge a woman's menstrual cycle
Yeah.
or judge a
Oh, so true. Yeah.
judge like I mean like I need to be very aware of it. Sometimes I tend to tell her and it's like maybe I'm judgmental. Maybe
No,
I'm
but the
trying
fact that
to
you're even catching yourself, I think a lot of people would probably say things and don't even think there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
easy to say, oh, you're on your PMS.
Yeah.
It's not that.
It's not
you're
that,
not gonna
yeah.
judge, but probably you want a more understanding and be cooperative with that.
Yeah.
so that leads to our last final question.
Yes, yes, yes. Because I think I'm pretty sure you're enjoying this conversation because we have so beautiful stuff that we are sharing here. On a final note, I want to hear from you, Pia, because like you being a person who is very aware, very empathic, and it's more like you are completely being there for your client from beginning towards the journey, right? So if whoever is watching right now, if they are going through a struggle, they're going through this, dilemma, how am I supposed to do? I'm almost know that I want to exit, but I don't know where to start with. What do you have to say to them?
I think the number one thing is get the right help. I cannot emphasize on how important is it to get the right help. What I mean by this is that in terms of like if you're going down the path of if you're looking at separation, ensure that the lawyer that you hire to defend you is someone who sees the world like you do. And sometimes it's okay when you speak to a lawyer for the first time and then you realize that, I just can't connect with you. I want things a bit more. I don't want to go into the emotional side of things. And that's okay. But at the same time, if you're the kind of person that wants to work, on yourself and you want to understand things better, you need to find the right fit. Similarly, the right support system. So I feel like when you talk about wanting to leave a marriage, but if you go and share it with your friends who are in unhappy relationships, oftentimes they're not going to be able to give you that support to leave because misery loves company. If everybody is struggling and one person is wanting to break free and they want to do better, they want to find a better relationship, oftentimes they're not going to be rooting for you. So I think you also need the right support. And third is, it's okay sometimes if you can't talk to your family about this. I always tell my clients, they always tell me like, oh no, but I don't have family support and everything. Sometimes, unfortunately, support will come later. That's okay. You can find your tribe elsewhere. There are many communities out there. There are many people out there, divorce support groups. Surround yourself with that because your intuition is telling you something that you deserve better and honor that over every other voice around you. And take your time. Even if you see, like for me, I always tell my clients, you can come and see me today, but I will not pressure you in any way to take that step until you are ready, and you have to feel ready. If there's a certain point of time that they come and tell me, but Pia, I think I want to try and fix my marriage, automatically I give them a marriage counselor's number. Then and there, I will never convince them otherwise because I'm a big believer of marriage. And I think that if you can work it out, I will do everything that I can to help you. But at the same time, if I know that you are being treated unfairly, I can't stand injustice as well. So I am going to stand by you and help you come out. So my final words that I always tell people is that support can be from find the right support, the right family members, the right friends, the right community, because that makes a world of a difference.
Beautifully said. You're such an inspiration, Priya.
Thank
you
you.
so much for sharing that. It really, really means a lot to many, many souls who are going through. I think it would be a very internal dialogue that they will go through. Am I wrong? Am I right? Am I being a bad daughter? Am I being a bad woman? Am I being a bad husband for choosing this, for choosing myself? Because the right word you said, misery, love,
Company.
company.
Yeah.
Because when we are surrounded by that and one person trying to break free from that, it's challenging.
It's so challenging.
And like
Yeah.
you said, seeking the right support, that means the world. actually to them.
Yeah.
Actually, perceive the misery loves company other way around. It's something like there are groups out there want you to be misery by breaking your relationship also.
Yeah, the misery
I see the other way around of it. I mean like that's
Misery
also
as
one side of it. This is also the other side
both
of
are
it.
the misery lah. Either being misery in a
In a
relationship, being
relationship.
misery in singlehood.
Yeah.
Single.
But like if you just speak to people who are unhealed or they have a very negative viewpoint of relationships, like I don't know whether you guys have friends like that in your circle or people that you know that's always like, I don't trust girls lah. You know that they even create songs, Tamil songs that talking about don't believe women or men are always going to break your heart. Well, the truth of it is that those things actually enable people to start having those beliefs, that okay, you know what, this is not for me, I'm not going to trust love again, cannot, that kind of thing. But I always feel like, coming back to my point, I think everybody is like grouping around that belief, and you get one person here who believes that they deserve better, they will get an excellent relationship. Who's going to win? 20 versus 1. So you need that one needs to go to another group of 20 that feels like him, because it's very difficult to break free when the voices around you are very, very loud.
So culturally, we are attached with the drama. More our cinemas are full of dramas.
Exactly.
And nowadays it's becoming more misery. I think seems like we have so much to talk. But I would like to summarize what we have spoke today, right?
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing you talk about when it comes to separation. Actually, so when it comes to separation, actually there is a love in separation, because you're getting a love for yourself, your partner, your kids. There is always a love in separation where we don't forget to see it actually. So why we couldn't see it? Because we are coming from a place of pretending versus truth, and blaming versus accountability, and abandonment versus trust. And also, instead of becoming a version of you, rather we are always looking for more healing and living in a drama of pain, right? So remember, when you are consciously separating, you're not choosing separation, you're consciously choosing love. And thank you so much for expressing that, because I wanted to hear from you. And I understand that it can be expressed through us, but it's also very important, a person in a family and divorce lawyer who has this kind of perception as well, because that's what I wanted to express to people, to show them there is a love in separation, right? Either you can go back to your karmic partner or you can separate with your karmic partner. It doesn't matter, but what matters is your own self, your own relationship. Your relationship is what holds the truth.
Very, very true. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I truly enjoyed our conversation, and I learned a lot as well from the both of you. And thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Piya. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed and also you have gained all the insights that is required. We'll see you on our next episode.
Actually, I would also say we are empathizing you, because in whenever it's separation or karmic relationship,
Yes,
I tend
yes.
to say empathizing, not the enjoying, because sometimes, like you said, like it's a pain, right?
Yeah. You know what? We are empathizing with you. Choosing the right word matters a lot.
Yes. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.